This is the Pillar Machine HMJ program screen. The screen is broken into two separate sections. The top section here is for rail end programming, and the bottom section here is for styles. You're going to run this machine in either a rail mode or a style mode. To change between the modes, you hit the Run Styles button here or the Run Rails button here. To program a rail end, you can see a depiction of the rail end here. We have a board width, so let's make a end rail here. We'll make it 1.5 inches wide. This is your board width. Board thickness, haunch depth, and if it's an end rail, then you hit this mid rail button. It'll toggle between true and false. If it's false, it will just depict a haunch on one side of the rail end. This feature, the double stack, is when you're processing the parts. If you're running two parts at a time, meaning you stack two rails, then you would, when you stack two rails, when you're cutting the rail ends or the haunches, then you would hit this to true. Your haunch speed is how fast in inches per minute the feed rate is of the machine when it's cutting that haunch. The PEC stack, this gives you a third pass on your cutting. So the way the machine works is you have two spindles that are counter-rotating. If you have this set to false, then your bottom cutter will come up first and break through the bottom edge of the bottom board, and then the top cutter will come down and finish off the cutting of that. It will cut all the way down through to mate with the bottom cut. If you have this set to true, then the top cutter will cut first to come down and hog away a lot of the material, and then the bottom cutter will come up and follow its original path, and then the top cutter will come down as well. This hogging pass that we call PEC stack gives you the ability to cut your feed rate a lot faster. So let's save this rail end. We'll save it as an end. Now let's create a mid rail also. We'll change this to 1.5 inches wide, and we'll tell it that it's a mid rail by clicking this toggle button that says mid rail. Now let's save this as a mid. So now we're done creating our rail ends for this job. Let's create a style to add, so the basic features here, this portion of the screen is to define the intersection points on a rail end. The rest of the features are more for board features and machine specific, and how the cutter characteristics happen. Let's change the board length to 30 inches to begin with. Let's add a line here. When you add a line and edit it, you have a couple of choices. The first choice is you can select a file. So let's select our end rail that we just created, and we're going to, because it recognizes that it's an end rail with a single haunch, it gives us a lot less options and knows that you're either going to attach that rail end to the left end of the style down here or to the right end of the style. To attach it to the left, you just make sure this says left and hit OK. And now it automatically inverts all of the data that you programmed into your rail end and attaches it to the style. Let's add another one to the right end of the style. Now we have one attached to the right of the style. Now let's add a couple of mid-rail intersections. We'll find our mid-rail that we created, and we'll tell it a position of 12 inches. And now it will automatically attach that intersection point to 12 inches on center line, and it will know that our board width here is 2.5 inches because that's how we programmed our mid-rail up at the top here. Let's add one more. Let's say we want this at 21 inches. So now we've added a second mid-rail intersection. Other features on the style zone is we have a feed rate speed here as well. This is a pusher speed for how fast the pusher advances the part through the machine. If we want to double stack these styles, then we'll hit true here. The idea of this machine is you can take your right and left hand style if they're mirror images and lay them back to back with the bead down on the bottom part and the bead up on the top part, and cut your haunches on both of those parts at the same time. The benefit of this is it allows you to have the same reference point. You can reference from the top of your face frame down on both your left style and your right style, so you're not using conflicting datum points on your left and right styles. If you use conflicting datum points, then you typically, if you have board length variation, then your frame can come out not square. This ensures that the frame comes out square because, again, you're always referencing from the same side of the frame when you're cutting these haunches. Other features are the board thickness and the pec stack feature. Again, is the same idea principle as it was when we do the mid rail. It again comes down with the top cutter first, climb cutting into the top part, hogging away a large portion of the material. Then the bottom cutter comes from the bottom, and again is climb cutting into the bottom bead on the part, and comes up just beyond the bead portion. Then the top cutter comes down and finishes off the rest of the haunch. Again, using this feature allows us to haunch at a much greater rate of speed, so we could increase this to around 300 inches per minute. To save this style, then we can hit the save button. Let's call this a 111 style. Now we're ready to run. To run our styles, we're already in the run mode now for styles. Once we're done with the styles, we hit the run rails button, and now we can process the rails through. One thing so now to open the programs is you hit the open button, and you can select from the list of styles that you've created. Here's our 111 style, and we can open it, and it will load in all the parameters for this particular style. Now that seemed like it took a long time, but why don't I start over and start with a new style, and you can see how fast it is to create that same style. So we'll change the board length, we'll change the pusher or the haunch speed, we'll add an intersection, we'll use our end rail, and we're going to attach it to the left end of the board. Now we'll create a right end rail, and then let's add some intersections for mid rails. We'll put this one at 20 inches on center. Okay, and now we're ready to run our style. It's that quick. There's a few little other parameters that we should change as well. Okay, now we're truly ready to run our style. Important to note also, there's other ways to define the intersection points on your style. Let's start over again. The other way is to add a line here. You can now manually program in your rail width. So let's say our rail width is 2 inches and the depth of the haunch is 5/16. Whoops. And we want this to be a left end rail, and it'll automatically attach that now down here. We can do the same thing and create a right end Actually, let's make this a 5-inch bottom rail. And to create a mid-rail here, we can do the same thing. And then we want it to be a center, and we'll set the position at 12 inches. So now we've just defined that style manually without attaching rail ends. So you can process that the exact same way you would process the style programmed using rail ends. That's the Pillar Machine HMJ programming functionality demonstration. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.